is. Okay. What is this thing here? Okay. 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 HaMitzvah Hashtayim v'chamishim. The 52nd mitzvah said. He is hirnu mehischatein b'koifrim. And the Ram is very interesting. Lischatein b'koifrim. That's the law. Let's just read a little bit and then we'll speak about it. Who amar yis'ale lo yischatein bo. So the question is, the Ram has a problem. It says lo yischatein, but there's no kedushin teifs, and we'll go through this. We'll go get just a simple shot. You can't get married to a guy. There's no tfisas kedushin. Ubei achasanis mai. And the Torah is mavaya. What is this chasanis? Bitcha loisitein libnoi v'ubita loisikach libonecha. Not that this tfisas kedushin, you're giving them for marriage. Not that the marriage is chal. In here, we'll see an important thing, which is just for later. It's not negated now, but it will be more for later. That it's not that bitcha leisita b'noi is a separate thing, but it comes to explain. And the Mitzvah Hashem will see later that some Shurim learn the two separate things. There's loisis chatein and there's bitcha leisita b'noi ubita leisita l'banecha. But the Ram comes and says no, ubeya. Chasanis mahi. What is chasanis? Leisis chatin. My chasanis mahi is bitcha leisita lebenoy, bitcha leisita lebenech. Ubebeir omru. B'avodah zarah, the Chachmei Meseres said in Avodah zarah, they explained what does it mean ubita and derech is derech chasanis osla Torah. The Torah prohibited a to live as man as wife, even though the kedushin are not nitfosim. That is the first part. Now we'll see what happens afterwards. The Ram does amazing things as we'll continue. But this is just the beginning and simple. Now, let's understand the word kaifu. L'cheira, a priori, this is going according to Reb Shimon, that the Isa of Leisis Chatin is in all ummos and not specifically to Zayin Amim. Even though in Torah Shebiksav you might have assumed that we're talking about only Zayin Amim, because in the Parsha Leisis Chatin it talks about the Zayin Amim. The Gemara Avodah Zarah, Lamevov Mebeis, Daraisa, Zayin Umois, Avosha, Eid de Avchov Mochagoyim Loy, the Osu Inu, the Chacham Eseu, the Gaza, the Afilu, the Shah Eid de Kachov, even of other of the Avodah Zarah. Or the Reb Shimon ben Yochai, the Om Ki Osi has been Cho, Meachorai, the rabbis call him Mesirais, so it means goyim. It means all goyim. Elo deraisa ishus der chasanis. All goyim, if it's in the frame of reference of chasanis. The also inu gozo afilu derchsnus beer shloite der chasanis is the rabbon. That is what we have. Comes the goyim, and the goyim says that this is according to the Gemara in Avodah Zarah presents as a machlokas of Shimon Rabbanon, but the maskon of the Gemara Kedushin that it's according to everyone. It's a biagra in Eben Ezer, Siman Tezayin Sivkot and Beis. And that is the sugi in kedushin and the sugi in avodah zarah, And the going learns according to everyone, or you can say it's the Ram Pasuk Shim, whichever way you like. The Rambam in Mishnah Torah adds something. And it's a very strange addition. The Rambam in Perik Yud Beis Misui Bi'al Aleph Yisrael Shabol Goya Bishar Umois Derech Ishus or Yisrael Shnibul Goy Derech Ishus Harei Elokim and Atera Shnemo Yischatim Bom Bitchol Yisitein Lebenoi Ubitol Yisikach Lebenecha. Here again, the Rambam puts the two things together, as he does in Sefer HaMitzvos. Echot Shiva, Amim V'echot Kol Umois B'Yisra Zeh. And then he says, V'chein B'furish Al Yidei Ezra, V'asher lo nitein b'noiseinu li'am ha'oretz, v'yes b'noiseihem lo nikach lebonein. So Ki'ilu, the Rambam is bringing a raya that we pass like Rab Shimon from the pasuk in Ezra, or you call Nehemiah Ezra. So it really is one sefer anyway. So that's the Rambam is presenting. The question is, maybe Ezra is just a reflection of the Rabbanon. So what the Rav suggested is it's working with the pasuk before. It says like this in what we call Nehemiah Perek Yud Lamed and Lamed Aleph, Machzikim es achehem the es adirehem uboyim bi'olo b'shvur. There's a klola and a shvur laleches b'teres l'elokim. What is b'teres l'elokim? It means the boy l'shem b'teres. It means Torah shebiksav. Asher nitna b'yad Moshe evet hu Elokim v'lishmol asos. It's called mitzvah Hashem Adonenu u'mishpotov v'chukov. And then its next pasuk says, "V'asher lo nitein b'neiseinu li'am ha'oretz v'es b'neiseinu lo nikach livonenu." So it means that the part of the shvur of Teres Moshe was on the derech chasnus in with Amei Oretz with Goyim. So that's the Rambam. It's a proof that we paskin that it's all Goyim. And B'Geyusa. Before they convert. Now, that is simple. The next step is I think interesting. The question is, what does the Rambam mean by Kaif? So what he means by Kaifim, and he uses this phrase in many of the mitzvahs which are around, if you recall. And the idea of Kaifim is Oiv Avodah Zarah. In Mitzvahs, the Oiv Avodah Zarah. And as the Rambam writes in the other mitzvahs before, and the Aramis in Haboil Aramis is also an Oived Avodah Zarah. And that the Ramis is a Pirush Mishnayis. And I'll read you, I'll tell you where the Judeo-Arabic is actually in Lashon HaKodesh part of it. Uboil Aramis, who sheyivo, and here is in the original Arabic or the Judeo-Arabic, bas uivdei avodah zara b'fahesia. Avo acha shepirush shelo hoyisa ovedes avodah zara. If she wasn't avodah zara, also the whole guy. So it means the Aramis, the boy Aramis, she's an ovedes avodah zara. That's the kaifim. The Ram Pirush Mishnayis is like the Ram Pirush Mishnayis. The Ram in here in Sefer HaMitzvos, where he says the Isa is Kaifim, is like the Ram Pirush Mishnayis, that the Isa depends on Eved Avodah Zarah Mitzvahs. And This he explains there in the Pirush Mishnah also. Mikomokoim, the boil el necha who muchuyev kores al bas oived avoid the zora. So it's very clear that this kefrim is oived avoid the zora. The Rambam doesn't mention Ger Toshav here. If you remember, last week we pointed out the Rambam only mentions Ger Toshav in the lav of Lo Yesh Batzecha, because the Isa of Lo Yesh Batecha, there is a het of Ger Toshav. Ger Toshav means that Toshav, there is a het of Yeshiva Ba'aretz. But in order to be matir the Isa of L'schatein, it depends on Avodah Zarah. If not over Avodah Zarah, that's enough. Even without Kabbalah, maybe. The Rambam in Mishnah Torah is mashma, not like this. But the Isa of Chasanas depends upon Goy. He doesn't say Oived Avodah Zarah. And the Heta depends upon Ger Toshav. The Rambam in Isui Bia, Perek Yud Beis Halacha Aleph, Yisrael Shabo Al Goya, Mishar Umois, Derech Ishus, or Yisraelis Shenibul Goy. Again, Goy, Derech Ishus. Hari Elu Loikim in Atera, Shenema Loisis Chaten Bo. He also the Gabi Boil Aramis. He doesn't say even about this. Call a boil Goya. Bein Derech Chasanis, Bein Derech Snus, in Bola B'Fahesia, Hu Shiyibo, Le'ene Asor Yisrael or Yeser, in Pogubo Kanoim, V'Holgu, Hari Elu B'Shubochim B'Zriza. Again, what the Rambam Pirush Mishnayis clearly says, and it's an Oived Avodah Zarah, in Mishnah Torah, it just depends on Goy. He doesn't mention Kaifa at all in Perek Yud Beis. And you get the impression also Mishnah Torah, the Torah is only in Ger Toshav. And it's not enough that he's not Oived Avodah Zarah Mitzias. The Rambam Perek Yud Beis of Hilchos Yisui Bi Alocha Hey, Va'abo Al Bas Ger Toshav, Ein HaKnoim Poigim Boy, Avo Makanoi Se Makis Makis. So Ger Toshav, there's no Kanoim Poigim. So I could have imagined, as the Ram seems to say in Pirush Mishnayis, that if he's not an Oived Avodah Zarah Mitzias, so she's not an Oived Avodah Zarah Mitzias, there also should be no Kanoim Poigim. The Ram says it's Ger Toshav, and all fits into his opinion in Mishnah Torah. In light of this, the Osameach says that the Gemara in Yevomis, in Vovim Aleph, has a discussion back and forth if Shlomo was Megaye Bas Paro or not. So the Osameach asks the question in Perek Yud Beis. He says, it's doch in the Chasanis of Shlomo Melech was certainly for Hesia, it should have been Kanoim Poigim Boy. So the Osameach says that Bas Paro certainly was Kabbalah Zayin Mitzvahs. The question is, was there bona fide geirus or not? But as far as Kanoim Poigim Boy, there's no Kanoim Poigim Boy if she's a Bas, if she's a Ger Toshav. So again, their chasanis is is living as man and wife, even though no kusha teifsin, and that's the Torah is mavaya. The Torah is mavaya loisischatein by saying bitcha loisita lebenoi ubita loisikach livonecho. Okay. Now that we have the basis of the Rambam, what I'd like to do is to discuss just other Rishonim, just to show you what the various issues are and how various Rishonim look at these issues. So the first issue is the Isa of Leiseschatein, since it's in the Parsha of Zayin Amamin, is it on Zayin Amamin? Or is it on all goyim? So remember, the Ram says in all goyim. But now we're going to discuss the Rishonim that the Isa is on Zayin Amamin. But even if the Isa is Zayin Amamin, there's another issue which you have to ask yourself. This next issue is, does in Zayin Amamin, does it require, is there an Isa of Kicha, or the Isa is just beer? The Yereim says the Isa is Kicha, but it's only Achrei Gerus where you can marry. But before Gerus, on Zayin Amamin, the Isa is with beer. The Yereim in Simcha of Zayin, or the Tfus Yoshin Reish Aleph, it's like this. Sheva Umois, his Haleim Akosu, but Pashas Ves Chanum. Tichsiv. This way Perek Zayin starts out, and this is where the Lavlis Chatin is mentioned. V'nosha goyim rabim miponecho hachiti v'emori v'agirgoshi uksiv basrei loisis chatin bom bitcho loisitein lebenoi ubitoi loisikach lebonecho. He says upashte dekro begeyuson mishtoi kro tichsiv ki yosir es bonecho me'acharag. And it's only because they're over there with the Zohar, and they be meisirim. Alma b'nei hasora kosim b'dav. V'rov v'dorish b'yavom is a perek ha'orel b'shnizgayu nami koy alayu. B'lav midei afki rachmon v'b'loshin chitun. V'yom ha'rovo b'geyuson les lo chasanis pirush tvis kedushin. The goya les lo kedushim. Midei afki mikro the kedushin. B'kiddushin b'shilei ha'omer ki megayri islei chasnas. So it means an Isa of before chasnas, and then Loisis Chatin tells you there's an Isa with chasnas after Gerus, but only Zayin Amamin. Umishas kiddushin koi hashevu umish nizgayru belav. The mishas kiddushin karinim bei Loisis Chatin. Av begusen loy ovar belav ad sheyivo to holav b'nei chitun b'kiddushin ninhu. So it means the Isa is Zayin Amamin, but before Gerus, the lav is a lav of beer. And after Gerus, the lav is kicha without beer. The kicha itself is awesome. That's what he says. The goya less like kedushim and afkachon could do it if he says like that. Upash nikor big koi alayu belav min afka pish tfis kedush min afka nikor umishas kedushin koi asheva umois shnizgayru belav mishas kedushin with the etzemais kedushin. You'll find in the Smad, in Lavin, Siman Kuf Yud Beis, the same shita. So it means Goy Zayin Amamin before Gerus, the Lav is an Isabir. And after Gerus, the Lav is an Isakicha. Tritvo says the Isa Zayin Amamin, even after Gerus, is also only beer. And that Tritvo and Kedusha in Chesam and Aleph. Megabe Yisroel and the Sina is a Zayin Amamin. The Chesiv lo is Chatim Bom. Bedashin begeruson the ismul chasen the tasen bekedushin af he ino eno ashora shelo lekadish. The isa is not a ma'ase kedushin even after gerus. Just the opposite of Yireim in the smag. The in kiddush v'le bol eno loike u bol v'le kiddush loike she'ein ashoras hakosuv ela shelo liboloisa afilu achesh in his guy. The Tafsir Bokadushin. The Islo Chassidus. Dava Mina Dava Kigiyoris. The Ksheir Israel Kamash Malon. No. That it's also, but it's an Isabia Hein Lifnei Gerus Hein Achre Gerus. And that the Avnei Muluyim in Siman Tezayin Sivkot Beis. That which is Mavuna Bodizora Lois Chatin is their Chasanis is only according to Rab Shimon, the Dorish time in the Krov. Okay, so Bekitza is according to the Reim before Gerus, it's an Isa Bia. After Gerus, it's an Isa Maisa Kedushin. According to Ritva, before Gerus and after Gerus, it's an Isabi. Now, I want to show you Ramban. The Ramban is mashma that both Goy and Ger of Zayin Amamin require Bia der Chasanis Lamalkus. And you don't require in Zayin Amamin after Gerus, you don't require Ishus. But you still need a Bia derech Ishus. Let me read to you a line in Ramban. It's a very interesting line. The Ramban in Kiddushin and Ayin Chesam and Aleph. And I'm going to read you the important line, and then I'll go back and read the whole thing. Nimsa she'ein b'chlal chitun zeh kiddushin ela bia belchud v'der chasanis k'de'isa b'avodah zarah. You require two things. You require bia and der chasanis. And he quotes the Gemara of the Zohar. And it's not the way the Avnei Muluyim says that the Gemara of the Zohar is only according to Rab Shimon, but even according to us, you require der chasanis. And the B has to be der chasanis. And let's see the Ramban. And maybe the Isa is an Isa Kedushin, like the Reim, the Ismu Chasanis. It's not that you require Maisa Kedushin, but there's an Isa even afterwards where there is Chasanas. Aval ein lo malchus ala Kedushin bilachud, even the claw, bein begeyuson, bein begeyuson. See, of the Zohar. So the Isa is before they convert and after they convert. Ubegeyuson like Tafsid Bukadushin. Nimsa. Now, she'ein bechlal chitun ze Kedushin elabia belachud, because it applies before Gerus and after Gerus. Ze Kedushin elabia belachud v'derech chasanas. I know this not a mamzeres nesina Yisrael b'chal loikin, but the loikin is because of bia derech chasanas. Now, so now we talked about whether the Isa is an Isa of Kiddushin, according to the Re'im, after Gerus, the Isa is an Isa Maisa Kiddushin. According to the Dvar, the Isa Bia, Lifnei Kiddushin, and Lifnei Gerus and after Gerus. According to the Ramban, the Isa Bias Ishus, of Derech Ishus, Hain before Gerus, Hain after Gerus, but all Zainam. Okay, now that is Zainam. The Rambam is clear there's no Zainam, it's only Goyim before Gerus. And according to Rishonim, it's Zainam, it's before Gerus and after Gerus. Before Gerus, it certainly is an Isabiyah, it might be an Isabiyah, Der Chassan is pointed on Ban. And after Gerus, according to the Yereim, it's an Isa Kedushin. And according to the Ritva, it's an Isa Bia like before. And according to Ramban, it's like before, it's Bia Derech Ishus. Now, question is, how long, if you learn not like the Rambam, you learn like these Rishonim, that the Isa Zayin Amamin as an Isa in Geruson, so it means 30 generations of Kananim, of Gerim, they were all also Lovo B'Kol. So here is like this. Tasik Suvis, Rabbeinu Tam seems to be the opinion that the Isa L'Deres, the Rabbeinu Tam and Tasis in the beginning of Elunairis, Chav Tesam and Aleph and Suvis, the Mask Elunairis and Mikomokim, a near Rabbeinu Tam, Pirushay, the Ho Masik Rova Be'orel, the Begeruson is Lahu Isa Chasanis, B'chol Hecha, the Choshev Nesina, B'hodim Amzeres, Aide Begerus. So it's a portrait Nesina, it's all Nesina, and all Deres. The Ramban in his Tushaban Yevomis, Ayin Ches Omebeis, has what he calls Lashon Hogan. He has many options, but in Lashon Hogan he says that the Isa of Zayin Amamin after Gerus is only one generation. Very interesting Ramban. Ayin Ches Omebeis in Yevomis, Shahari Loi Nemru Lehem Deres, V'loi Ad Oilam. You see, my mom is Ad Oilam. Kederech Sha'oma, and if I could say Namunu Moyev, the David goes Aleim Isa Oilam. The Kitzi is basically when I tell you it's only Dor Echad. And David was Geisen Isa Oilam. B'chol Mokot Shaninu Nesinim, Yesh V'mishma Ger Rishon Mino Umois Alolo Sheniz Gayer. If you talk about Malchus, then it's the first door. So now we pointed out the question, what's the Isa in Zayin Amamin? Is it Isa Bia and Isa Kicha or Derech Ishus? Then we want to know if Zayin Amamin after Gerus is forever only Dor Rishon. Now there's another question. The question is, if you're of the opinion that the Isa Zayin Amamin is there also an Isa of all Goyim before Gerus? So the mashmos of Tesis and the Sefer Chinuch is that the two psukim, and here comes the important thing. There's a pasuk of Titchate and Bincha Bitcha Loisita the Benai or Bincha Loisita the Bitai. So there are two different psukim. According to the Rambam, remember that it's one pasuk, that it's one inyan. That the Bitcha Loisita the Benai comes and explains Titchate. Even was no Tfisa Kedushin, it's still us. It's the Terechishas. And they learn the two separate Isurim. There's an Isa of Chasanis, when Chasanis is Chal by Gerus in Zayin Ammin, Mikor the Bito Isikal Benecha, Elois Chatein, and then from the Posik of Bito Isikach Lebincha comes to Asa all Goyim Koyim Gerus. Teisa Vodazora, Lamed Vav Lamed Beis, Tivamas Sibloi, Teisa the Gedushin, Samachesam Beis, Masal Makra, and this is in Teisa it's mashma like that, but in the Sefer Chinuch in Mitzvah Tov Chav Zayin it's mamish mefurish. The Reim is of the opinion, and also the Smag, the Reim where we mentioned the Smag in Lavin Kufyud Beis, that the Isa Hein Lefnei Gerus, Hein Acha Gerus is only Zayin Am. And the Beis Shmuel in Siman Tezayin, Sivkot Nalef, seems to working without mentioning he mentions the Machlokas Ram and others, but when mentioning Zayin Amim, he takes the opinion that if it's Zayin Amim, there's no Isa of Shagoyim at all. Okay. This is the first part. The first part is the question is, the Isa is it Chasanis and all Goyim, according to the Rambam, and there's no Isa after Gerus at all. And the other is showing him that there is an Isa of Zayin Amamin. And the question is, what is the Isa of Zayin Amamin? Is it Isa Bia, an Isa Kicha after Gerus, or is it Isa Bia Derech Ishus all the time? Then we had the question of whether the Isa is Dor Rishon or always, and whether if you learn Zayin Amamin before Gerus, is there also an Isa of all Goyim? Now we're getting it now. Now the Rambam does amazing things in Sefer HaMitzvos here without even saying he's doing anything. And this will be very interesting. And comparing it to Mishnah Torah, see, when you look at Mishnah Torah, you think you understood something. And we understand absolutely nothing. Let's now go through it. So comes the Rambam. Just before we start, we know that Yisrael Abo al Goya is Kanoim Poigim Boy Befahesia. So the question is, how do we know that is it also? Is it not also? How do we know that it's also? Is it also? So if you say that we go by Goyim, it's an Isabiyah, so you're okay. But if you say that by Goyim it's their Chasanas, you have a problem over here because the Bia over there, because Basua was not their Chasanas over there. So the question is, what's the problem? So comes the Rambam without saying anything. It just moves over and he does an amazing thing. He doesn't tell you how he did it. It's like a magician's trick. If he says they're chasnas also take, so the chayre biesnus is with the reise mutter. One of the reise mutter. The Ram says the oive alav zeh yesh bi oinchoy heftish or chiluk. There are different oinchon in this lav. V'zeh sha'boil goya kishebo leo b'fahesia. If someone is boiled on a goya b'fahesia, call me shahogoy v'udovek ba'avera. It means that he was like Pirish, it's b'shas beer. Misasek ba'avera or Isa avera. Different translations. Kapach, even Eov. Oit nisasek kapach Isa avera ba'avera. Hine kiyamolov hageder. Kiyamolov hageder. It's a Tibin in Ibn Eov. Heavy olov or Einish. That l'chur sounds much better. Or kva kiyamolov es Einish. Okay, to say that. So the Einish is Hanoim Pogin by Moy Sha'asa Pinchas Bizimri, which was Kanoim Pogin boy. Omu Haboil Aramis Kanoim Pogin boy. Abu B'Tzunim Shomu Hu Shiovo Allah Aleho B'Fahesia Ub'Shas Maisa Uchamaisa Shahoya V'Im Lo Yosem Kizeh B'Fahesia. Then he has a different. Then he goes on and on. The second chiluk. But the Rambam has done an amazing thing. He hasn't explained to you how he did it and why he did it, but he assumes that even though the Isa is an Isa of derech chasanas, if you boil arami b'fahesia, it comes under this lav. Because the Ram says, "V'oiva lav zeh yesh hefresh," and one of the chilukim or the hefreshim, whatever is the case of boil aramis b'fahesia. So it's an amazing thing. How in the world will the Rambam is the Chayke V'Derish, the Torah says that the Torah comes like Titchatan and explains that it's equal b'noi, it's derech ishus, and that's the lav like Titchatan. How can the Ram say such a crazy thing that Kanoim Poigaboy violates the law of Leisis Chatimbo? It's an amazing thing. So he could have said that Kanoim Poigaboy is like Mrs. Besden. And the same way we said in Cherish Yudalid that they don't come Mashirim by Mrs. Besden, you kill him. So it must be you couldn't give an Einish unless there's an Ashala. The Rambam says in Cherish Yudalid everyone is Mechui Mrs. Besden, there's an Ashala. Mishumei Einish Kim Mashirim. But you can't say that. Because Rabbeinu Shoyler, there's doch in your Mishnah that are going to be Sakasva, Sanhedrin, which is Klishores, Havik Hanoim Poigin Boy, the Mishnah Sanhedrin Perik Test Mishnah Vov, are going to be Sakasva, Makalo, Bekoisei, Vaboil Aramis, Kanoim Poigin Boy, all three of them. And the Ram, Hilchus Sanhedrin and Perik Yutches, Halacha Vov, are going to Klishores, Min HaMikdash Makala B'Koisa Boil Aramis Ein Bezin Niskokin Lohen Ela kanoim poigin behen, hold your hogan zocha. But in the case of kanoim poigin boy, of goyne vesakasvo, the Rambam is mafurish in Sefer HaMitzvos that there's no law. How do I know that? If you remember in Shiur Shlishi, the Ram says, Remes l'goyne vesakasvo, shlo lo yiro, lo yavo liois, kibales hakodesh, v'dai b'zeh Remes, that it's not a deraisa. Remember, the Ramban disagrees about it, I saw this Ramban, but the Ram learns that in goyne vesakasvo, that there's no lav, and that which the Gemara says is a lav of lo yiro kibbalas hakodesh, lo yavo liois kibbalas hakodesh. The Ram says in Sefer HaMitzvos Shirish Gimel that it's a lav which is the fisha, which is not minyan mitzvahs. It's a lav b'shas, the prika, and the of the Mishkan. You shouldn't see the kalim were coming out of the Naltekim, or the Oroin, so as far as Goyne Vesakasvo, there's no lav. It still is Kanoim Poigabo. So what's the raya? Since we know that there's a oinish of Goyne Vesakasvo of Kanoim Poigabo, there's no lav. What then we should say that in Lois Chaten, the weiß the chayes that that Kanoim Poigin boy is not an oinish of Bezdin, and it's only an oinish Bezdin or oinish Shamayim, but this is not an oinish, it's Kanoim Poigin boy. So Mela, whatever you want to say, but whatever it is Kanoim Poigin boy, you don't require love. You see, I'm going to Sakasa. So what I want to suggest, we'll have to see about this, is that maybe that we'll see later that in this Kanoim Poigin boy, or in other situations, the Chiv Koris, Midivrei Kabbalah. No, I'm just going to say it over here. Let's read it. V'im loy osa zeh b'fahesya. That's the way it's written. Lo osa zeh b'fahesya. Or that's Ibn Tibin. In Kapach, in Ibn Eyev, it's im lo yodu olov. So, but it's not fahesya. Oh, shapir shalei pogabo kanoyim. Hinehu mechuyim bekores. Avoloi hisbaye ze hakores batera. It's not mefurish in kro. Omru loy pogabo kanoyim mahu vizboye shehu bekores. Me omroi ki chilo Yehuda kodesh Hashem asher ubo al bas el necha yichas Hashem lo ish asher yaseno er v'oino. So there's chorus. Amru Michal de Bekoris. Ukish Amis al Odom. Okay, that's not that's still here. Okay. Now, so that was my suggestion. I don't know if it's true, but maybe it's true. And if it's true, it's certainly very important that maybe since we say ein oinchin masirin and there's a chiv chorus, even though it's not mufurish in kro, but that chiv chorus requires an ashara. So the Rambam knows from that, and since the Rambam says over here that the chiv chorus is hein beboil b'fahesya, hein beboil b'tzino, so it's a chiddush, even though the etzem alav is a lav titchatan, and the lav is the derech ishus. It's a confusion tale like that because it says lo titchatan ubei akosu abei achasinus. It's a bin choshit lebitra ulebina that it's derech ishus, it's derech chasinus, but comes the chiyuv koros b'divrei kabbalah, and there's an add-on that is also an isa of boil bas el necho, which is also b'chlal lalav, which is a chiyuv koros. But here I just want to add something. And if you accept this, there's something amazing going on. Because if you recall, the Ram Shita, if you are mechadish in Israel with the din of an ancient mikmashirin, it's a separate lava minyan mitzvahs. If you recall, we had in Novi b'shem avodah zarah and Maski b'shem avodah zarah, Nishba b'shem avodah zarah, the two separate lava minyan mitzvahs. There's a lav of a Makal Dayin, but there's a separate lav because a ancient Kalmashirin or the Chiyuv from Magadev or Birkas Hashem is a separate lav of Minyan Mitzvah. We'll see it Mitzvah Hashem soon, whatever it is. And Loisa says Samach. And here, there's a lav of Loisa Titchatan of Derech Ishus. And because of the Chiyuv Koros, we learn that is also enjoined even Shalok Derech Ishus, but a Yisrael a boil bas el necho is Chiyuv Koros, and there's no separate lav; it's the same lav. Yesh b'lav hazeh hefresh. So it's an amazing thing. I can't explain it, but I can explain something. It seems to be that since it's not a chorus, which is mefurish b'kro, and since a lav has to be mefurish b'kro, so you can't say eronshim k'mashirin to machadish a nuas horo. But with eronshim, since it's a chorus b'divrei kabbalah, it's enough to be able to expand the lav. That's what I would suggest. Just now, I'd like to do something before we go on and read here. This is amazing. So it means that the Kanoim Poigin boy, that the Isa is not because of the Kanoim Poigin boy, because the Kanoim Poigin boy doesn't require an Ashor. You remember, we knew that from Goynev as a Kasva. But the boil, Bas El Necho, that's Mechayiv and Ashor. Because they know it's covered with the Kabbalah. Okay. The question is, what is the Ram's opinion in Mishnah Torah? And here it's interesting. The Ram in Mishnah Torah seems to say that the Torah did not asa biasnus im goya. The Ram in Perik Yud Beis Halacha Beis v'lo osla Torah ela derech chasanas aval abo al hagoya derech snus Ma can I say Makas Maldas with the Sefer? But it says Loi Osra Teira, L'cheira, it means that there's no Isa Deraisa. So even though under certain circumstances there might be a Kanoim Plegin boy or Chiv Koles, it seems to be that it's not Kol Churaveus Halav of Leisis Chatin. And it's not like the Ram over here. And maybe the Ram of Mishnah Torah holds the anointing Kemasirin only applies to Kolis from Fuish and Chol. And according to the Kabbalah, there's not gender in Ashola. So there are those that claim that the Ram's opinion in Mishnah Torah is that the Isa is because Halacha Mishmisina. The same way that Halacha Mishmisina says Kanoim Poigaboy, the Halacha Mishmisina says is an Isa. But there's an Isa Deraisa, which has nothing to do with a lav. It's nothing to do with Minyan HaMitzvos. The Lechem Mishnah, excuse me, the Magid Mishnah in Isui Bia Perek Yud Beis Halacha Beis, look at there and maybe says it. I think he says it, possibly. And the Lechem Mishnah in Hilchos Malachim, Perek Ches Halacha Beis. And then he says, Mefulish, Kavanosai Loima, the Ilu, he befahesia, Vadai di Himinateo. Can I mean a Perek Emadinin, the Kanoim Poigaboy, Halacha Mishmisinim, with the Reis befahesia, Uchamais Yehoyek, which calls Rabbeinu, because he's Sui Bia Perek Yud Beis. Avokivich, Ubetzino, Loy Haviminateo. But the fact that it's Kanoim Poigaboy, Halacha Mishmisinim, that itself asks. Another difference, another interesting thing. The Ram over here seems to say that the Chiv Koris of Boil El Necha is Hein B'Fahesia, Hein B'Tzina. Because this is Avol Im Loi, he says, V'Im Loi Osa Zeh B'Fahesia, or Lo Yadua, whatever you want to say, but it's not B'Fahesia, O Shapir Shalei Pogu. But Kanoi Hari Hu Mechuyev Koris. The Chiv Koris is not only B'Fahesia, but it's also B'Tzina. The Ram of Mishnah Torah is mashim the Chiv Koris of Boil El Necha is only B'Fahesia. The Rambam Isui Bia Perek Yud Beis Halacha Vav Lo Pogu Boy Kanoim V'Lo Hilkuhu. We're talking about the same case. He was the B'Fahesia, but the Kanoim didn't kill him. V'Lo Hilkuhu Bezdin. Hari onsho mefuish b'divrei Kabbalah shuba kodesh shenemo ki chilo Yehuda k'dekez Hashem v'u asher ohev u'bol bas el necha yichos Hashem li'ish asher yaseno e'er v'yoyna. So it's like mefuish. The Rambam is only in a case of Kanoim Poigaboy. Here it's even B'Tzina in Sefer HaMitzvos. He's a boil basel necha. And you get the impression in Mishnah Torah, the boil basel necha is the chil Hashem shebo. The fact doesn't vahesia. And the chalkas mechoik is mefuish in Siman Tezayin Sif Cotton Hay, that in Mishnah Torah it's only in B'Fahesia. The Shulchan, it's not. I don't know how fair it is. The Chalkas Mechokis is in Shulchan Aruch, but the Shulchan Aruch is very similar to Lashon Rambam. So the would say in Rambam. The Bach in Eben Tur and Eben Ezer Siman Tezayin Diva Maskul Mashkos Abdul Pogo Kanoim. is of the opinion that the Rambam Mishnah Torah is also Betzina Yesh Onish Kodesh. I'm not sure how you read the Rambam, but I just want to present what they say. Okay. Now next. Omu, what the Rambam says over here, the Bekores, which is the Judeo-Arabic says, is l'cheira. He said he's paraphrasing the Gemara because more said Hedron pay based on Aleph. Ubo bas el necho ze abo al nochris. Ksib basrei yichas Hashem liish asher yasena er v'oino. Now, the Rambam is very clear that Halacha Mishri Sinai says it here. Let's go back. Der Chassidus v'oiv alav zeh yesh v'od shvel v'zeh shehaboil goya yisheboil level fehesi. In other words, this Isa, the whole Kanoim Poigi boy, and the whole Chiv Kores is only if a Jew is boil a non-Jewish, a Gentile lady. But if a Gentile man is boil a Jewish, the whole thing doesn't apply. But not only the Kanoim Poigim boy, but also the Chiv Kores. However, the Hagos Mordechai says that you can do it either way. An amazing thing. That's what he says. But the Rambam, the whole lav over here, the discussion of lav, discussing Chiv Kores, boil bas el neid. Now, we'll see. I'll pick this up next week. We're just getting towards the end. Just want to say short that the question is this problem, the Chiv Kores and the Kanoim Poigim boy, the Ram is mashma that it's an Isav with the Zoro. And we'll see the Ramban that the Isa is not an Isav with the Zoro, but an Isa Arayis. But that l'cheira we'll pick up next week. And the most difficult thing next week, Bli Neder, is this last line. What's the case? Bo'al Goya Be'edin Basra. Rab Chaim Heller has all over here and says something. But I think in terms of the Arabic, what he's saying, it's very difficult to maintain what he say. And then Mitzvah Hashem will pick up after that the Isa Ramon the Moabi and Mitzri and Adoimi, Mitzvah Hashem Bli Neder.